She didn't see me walk in. Not at first. That's probably what stung the most. She always used to notice me, even in a room full of people. But that night, she was already turned halfway toward him, laughing at something I'm sure wasn't that funny. Her fingers wrapped around a champagne flute like it belonged to her new self. This version of her that wore bold lipstick and never glanced over her shoulder to check if I'd arrived. I stood by the entrance of the gallery holding a coat she asked me to carry, watching her through a wall of shimmering light fixtures and pretentious conversation. She was dazzling, commanding, effortless, and I felt like the background noise. The man she was talking to had a beard too perfect to be accidental, in a suit that probably had a name. He leaned in too close. She didn't lean away. His hand brushed her lower back and she laughed again. Not a fake laugh, one of those warm, unfiltered ones I hadn't heard in months. Maybe years. I didn't interrupt. I didn't walk up. I didn't cause a scene. I just turned around, walked straight back out the door, and let the winter air slap my face for being so stupid. No one chased after me. No one even noticed I left. I didn't go home. I didn't even check my phone. I just walked. And as I wandered past the bakery she never liked, and the park where we once argued about buying a second car, I kept replaying the angle of her smile, how it tilted slightly when she spoke to him, how her eyes shimmered like they were seeing someone new and not the man who'd spent 9 years remembering her coffee order and her brother's birthday. I got home just after 1 a.m. I didn't sleep. She walked in around 3. I didn't ask where she'd been. She didn't offer. I just watched her set her heels down carefully by the door like she didn't want to make a sound in a house already filled with noise we weren't saying. She didn't say sorry. She didn't say anything. She went straight to the guest room and shut the door. And I sat on the couch and waited for the sun to come up, wondering how long it would take for a heart to quietly stop hoping. At 7:42 a.m. I heard it. A whimper, then a gasp, then full heaving sobs muffled behind the guest room door like regret, trying not to wake the house. She was crying hard, and I didn't rush to comfort her. I didn't do what I always do, patch her storm with my silence. I just stared out the window at nothing because that's what I felt like now. Nothing. The next morning wasn't loud. It wasn't filled with accusations or shouting. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that hurts more than screaming ever could. I stayed in the living room, still dressed in the clothes I wore to the party, staring blankly at the same spot on the carpet as the light shifted across it. I hadn't moved. Not really. Around 8:15 a.m. I heard the guest room door creak open. I didn't look. I could feel her presence like static behind me. She stood there for a while, probably trying to figure out what version of me she was about to face. The one who always folded? Or something else? Something new? I stayed still. She broke the silence first. "You left without saying anything," she said, her voice strained. It wasn't a question. It wasn't even said with anger. It was softer, almost as if she was ashamed of having to say it out loud. I didn't respond. I wanted her to feel what it's like to talk into a void and get nothing back. "I looked for you," she added, her voice cracking. I could hear her stepping closer, probably expecting some reaction, some kind of emotional giveaway that would let her know how much she still mattered. But I gave her nothing, because at that moment, I wasn't even sure who she was. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, just far enough to not touch me. I finally turned to look at her. Her eyes were red. She hadn't slept either. Good, I thought. At least we matched in misery. Then she said it, the thing that knocked the breath out of me more than anything she did at that party. I didn't plan for it to look that way. I wasn't trying to hurt you." That sentence was like a glass shattering in slow motion. Not because it was cruel, but because it was cowardly. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't regret. It was the start of an excuse, an escape hatched to avoid blame. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Then why did it look that way? I finally asked. My voice came out flatter than I expected. Not angry, just tired. She didn't answer immediately. She started to, but stopped herself. I could see the calculations happening in her head. Damage control strategy. I stood up, and for the first time in years I looked down at her, not as my wife, but as someone who had created a stranger out of herself. "I saw you with him. You weren't just talking. You weren't networking. You looked like a woman who didn't want to be found." She looked up at me, eyes trembling, jaw tight. "I didn't think you'd see it." That was it. That was the line. She didn't think I'd see it, as if the betrayal was only real if I caught it. I walked out of the room and into the hallway. She didn't follow me right away. She sat there in stunned silence, maybe realizing for the first time that I wasn't going to beg for her explanation. I wasn't going to ask who he was. I wasn't going to fall apart on cue. I was just done reacting, and she was just starting to realize the weight of what she'd done. Not because of what she did, but because I didn't do what she expected. I didn't chase, I didn't cry. I just walked away. The sound of the shower running was the only thing moving in that house. The water had been on for too long, but I didn't knock. Let her stand under it. Let her rinse off whatever parts of last night she wanted to pretend were gone. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee untouched, phone face down, staring at the same calendar on the wall I kept forgetting to replace, still showing April. It was November. She came into the kitchen slowly, wrapped in a robe I bought her 2 Christmases ago. The soft gray one with the initials she said felt too much like something a mom would wear. She wore it now, probably thinking I'd find it comforting. I didn't. It looked like camouflage. She didn't sit down, just stood by the counter with her fingers around a glass of water, like it was a lifeline. Her voice finally came, quiet and unsure. "I don't know why I let it get that far. I didn't mean anything by it." That was her idea of an apology. No ownership, no names, no truth, just this vague cloud of guilt with no shape. I looked at her and asked, "What's his name?" She hesitated. "I don't want to make this worse." Her face hardened, but the guilt was still there, crawling beneath her skin. I could see her eyes shift, searching for the right words, but there were none. Only the truth, and she clearly didn't come prepared to give it. "I didn't sleep with him," she finally said. And that one sentence, that exact phrase, made my stomach turn because she chose her words too carefully. Didn't sleep with him. Not didn't like him. Not didn't feel anything. Just a denial of one physical act. Everything else still on the table. I stood up slowly and grabbed my keys off the counter. "I'm not asking for details. I'm not even asking for the truth anymore," I told her. "I'm asking for space." She blinked fast like she couldn't process what I was saying. "You're leaving?" "I'm breathing," I replied, walking past her toward the door, something I haven't done in a while. As I pulled the door shut behind me, I heard her voice crack. "I don't want to lose you over a mistake." But it wasn't just a mistake. I parked the car 3 blocks from the park, not because I wanted a scenic walk, but because I wasn't ready to go home. I sat under a tree for maybe an hour, watching strangers pass by. Parents chasing toddlers, couples walking dogs, joggers weaving around them like they had somewhere to be. Everyone seemed to be in motion except me. I felt like background noise in my own life. My phone buzzed, then again and again. Lenora had messaged 5 times. I didn't open them. I didn't need to read her version of the night. I already knew what it would sound like. Soft regret, filtered truth, the kind of controlled guilt that doesn't feel like an apology, but more like a press release. And the worst part? I probably would have accepted it 2 years ago, maybe even last month. But not now. When I finally returned home, the air inside the house felt different. Still cold, the way a place changes after something sacred has been broken, even if nothing is physically out of place. She was in the kitchen again. Same robe, but this time she looked like she hadn't moved in hours. Her face lit up when she heard the door, but I walked past her wordlessly and sat down on the couch. She followed quietly, almost afraid to make a sound. "I've been thinking," she started, "about everything. About how I made you feel last night." I waited. "I know I hurt you. I miss who we were before everything got heavy. You barely look at me anymore." There it was, the deflection, the passive turn. You barely look at me anymore. As if my exhaustion, my pulling away, my silence had come out of nowhere. As if they hadn't been sculpted by months of being shut out, minimized, emotionally rationed like affection was a scarce resource. "I barely look at you," I repeated, because every time I do, I wonder if I'm seeing the same woman I married, and that question makes me sick. She didn't cry this time. I think the part of her that could cry had dried up earlier that morning. Instead, she just looked stunned, like no one had ever held up a mirror and refused to clean the edges for her. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she said again, the words brittle. "I think that's what scares me the most," I replied. She sat down across from me, wringing her hands, staring into her lap like the truth was hiding in her fingernails. "Nothing happened," she repeated. And I realized something in that moment. She wasn't just trying to convince me. She was trying to convince herself. The way her voice trembled, not from fear but from doubt, told me she was holding back more than I'd ever know. Maybe she hadn't crossed the line physically. Maybe she had. But emotionally, she jumped the fence, picked flowers on the other side, and only started to panic when she saw me watching. "I want to fix this," she finally whispered. "Please tell me how." I almost laughed. Tell me how. Like I was the mechanic who could rewire a shattered trust. "I don't think you understand," I said, standing. "This isn't about what I want. This is about what you already chose." And the moment I said that, her face cracked. I woke up the next morning in the same position I'd fallen asleep, on the couch, one arm tucked under a throw pillow, neck sore, and back screaming for a real bed. The kind of sleep you don't really remember falling into. The kind you sink into when your brain is too tired to fight anymore. The first thing I noticed was the smell of breakfast. Eggs, toast, something overly buttery, like she'd gone out of her way to replicate the kind of breakfast she hadn't made in months. I didn't move. I just stared at the ceiling and listened. Cabinets opening, plates clinking, her voice humming something soft under her breath. It sounded rehearsed, like she thought this was the scene where things could go back to normal, like all it took was pancakes and pretend. I finally got up, not because I wanted to eat, but because avoiding her completely would have felt like surrendering. I walked into the kitchen and saw her standing there in sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair up in a messy bun, flipping pancakes like it was Sunday, and nothing had changed. "Good morning," she said, turning slightly, smiling like she wanted me to forget. "I thought maybe we could have breakfast together." No talking, just food. A reset. A reset. She said it so easily, like life was an app you could close and reopen when it started glitching. I sat down silently, not because I agreed, but because I needed to see how far she'd go with this illusion. She placed a plate in front of me, 3 pancakes, cut strawberries on the side. It looked like love. It felt like strategy. We ate in silence. I watched her more than I ate. She kept her eyes on her plate, only glancing at me once or twice, like she was waiting for a signal to drop the act and speak freely. But I gave her nothing. I needed her to crack first. Halfway through the meal, she said it. Not an apology, not a confession, just a single sentence that shifted everything. I know I crossed a line. I just didn't think you'd leave. That was it. The raw truth. Not why she did it, not what she felt, just the part where she thought I'd endure it quietly as usual. That's when it hit me. This whole time, she hadn't been afraid I'd stop loving her. She was afraid I'd stop taking it. I put my fork down. You never actually thought you'd lose me, I said, not as a question. Her silence confirmed it. She looked away. I continued. You thought I'd sulk, sleep on the couch, and eventually come back with soft words and lowered expectations, didn't you? She didn't deny it. That told me everything I needed to know. I can't live in this version of us, I said, pushing the plate away, where I'm supposed to stay loyal while you explore emotional loopholes. Her voice broke. It wasn't like that. I felt invisible. And flirting with someone else made you feel seen. She nodded, shame written across her face. I didn't go back to the house that night. I grabbed an overnight bag, booked a cheap room at a hotel with peeling wallpaper and humming pipes, and laid on the stiff mattress in the dark, trying to breathe like a normal person again. I don't even remember falling asleep, just staring at the ceiling until it blurred into black. Around 3:08 a.m. my phone buzzed. It was a voicemail from Lenora. Not a text, not a call. A voicemail. Like she needed to say something without the possibility of hearing my silence on the other end. I hesitated to open it, then pressed play. Already numb. Her voice was shaky. I know you're not ready to talk. I get it. But I need to say this. I didn't do what you think I did. Nothing happened with him. Nothing physical. But I wanted it to. I didn't stop it because of you. I stopped it because of me. And that's worse, isn't it? I sat up, my stomach twisted. She continued. He didn't mean anything. That night, I felt powerful. Like I mattered again. I don't know when I started needing that from people who aren't you. And I'm sorry, but I don't think you'll believe me. I wouldn't either. Click. End of message. For the first time in this entire mess, I heard something real in her voice. Not regret for getting caught, not guilt weaponized into pity, just a confession that wasn't designed to manipulate or fix. And it scared me more than anything else. Because that kind of honesty doesn't come from a person trying to save a relationship. It comes from someone finally realizing what they broke and that they might not get another chance. I didn't respond. In the morning, I checked out of the hotel, drove around aimlessly again, and ended up parked outside my old high school for no reason, just instinct. It reminded me of who I used to be before all this, before bills and careers and complicated silences with the person I thought would be my forever. Back when love was something that felt safe. Later that day, I stopped by the house to grab a few more things. I didn't even know if she'd be home, I half hoped she wouldn't be, but the moment I walked through the door, I knew she was. It smelled like citrus cleaner and lavender, the scent she always used when she was trying to control chaos. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, eyes swollen. When she saw me, she didn't speak. She just stood up, walked to the sink, and kept her back to me like she was afraid even her face might say too much. I listened to the voicemail, I said, keeping my distance. It was the first honest thing you've said. She nodded, but didn't turn around. Why him? I asked. Of all people, why did you let him be the one to make you feel seen? She finally turned, tears filling her eyes again. Because he wasn't you, and that made it feel easier. There was no history, no weight, no expectations. That answer didn't make me feel better. It made me feel replaced by convenience. So what now? I asked, exhausted. I don't know, she whispered. But if you leave for good, just don't vanish. I don't think I can survive the silence again. It hit me in that moment. She was scared not just of losing me, but of facing herself without distraction, without pretending. 2 days passed. We moved through the same house like strangers in a museum, quietly observing the artifacts of what we used to be. Her coffee mug next to mine, her jacket still on the hook, my shoes still facing the door. Everything in its place, yet everything wrong. On the third morning, I opened the front door and found a bouquet on the steps. Roses, the expensive kind, probably ordered online. No note, just the flowers and a small white envelope tucked under the ribbon. I didn't open it right away. Something about the whole gesture felt off. Not sweet, not remorseful. It felt like an attempt to rewind something that had already moved too far forward. Lenora walked into the hallway just as I brought them inside. Her face shifted when she saw them, and not in a good way. She stopped mid-step like the sight of them drained whatever fragile courage she had left. "Where'd those come from?" she asked too quickly. I looked at her. "You didn't send them?" She shook her head slowly. "No," I thought. "Maybe you." "No," I said, setting the bouquet on the counter. "Not me." She walked over and picked up the envelope. Her hands trembled just slightly. I watched her open it, unfold the card inside, and freeze. Her expression didn't change, but her silence deepened. I stepped closer. "Who's it from?" She held out the card like it was burning her fingers. I took it. 2 words. That's all it said, still thinking. There was no name, no context, just those 2 words like a whisper left behind after a door closes. Her mouth opened, then closed. I saw something in her eyes. Panic, maybe shame, guilt resurfacing. And that's when I knew whoever he wasn't just a one-night mistake. He was still in the background, still circling. "I didn't ask him to send that," she said defensively. "I haven't spoken to him, I swear." I stared at the card, but he clearly thinks he can. She stepped back, like the truth physically pushed her. "I blocked him," she whispered. "After the party, I swear I did." I didn't respond because honestly, I didn't care about the technicalities. Whether she blocked him before or after she let him into that emotional space didn't matter to me. The damage wasn't in the message. It was in the fact that it had room to happen at all. "You invited someone into us," I said quietly. "And now you're shocked that he's still knocking." Her shoulders fell. Her hands dropped to her sides. "I didn't think it would go this far. I thought it would die in the moment." "Yeah," I muttered, setting the card down. "You didn't think a lot of things." We didn't speak for the rest of the day. The night after the flowers arrived, I barely slept. I didn't pace. I didn't cry. I just lay there with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, thinking about every small moment that brought us to this point. It wasn't just that party. It was years of quiet missteps, resentments, loneliness. Me not speaking up, her slowly checking out. We were two people standing in the same room but drifting in different directions for a long time. That night only made it visible. I expected the next morning to feel heavy like all the others, but instead, something shifted. When I got out of bed and walked into the kitchen, she was already there. No makeup, no show, just Lenora, vulnerable and raw. She didn't look like she was rehearsing her next sentence. She looked like she was finally ready to stop pretending. I told him never to contact me again, she said quietly. And I mean it this time. No half steps, no blurred lines. I looked at her, tired but honest. Why now? Because I realized I was trying to be noticed by someone new, instead of being honest with the person who stood by me for years. She exhaled. I hurt you. I got lost. But I want to find my way back. Not to who we were, but to something better, something real. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. I just watched her, not like someone trying to catch her lying, but like someone hoping this might actually be the moment where things begin to heal. And for the first time since that awful party, I didn't feel numb. I felt open. I'm not promising I can forgive everything today, I finally said. But I'm willing to stay if we're building something new. No ghosts, no secrets. She stepped forward and nodded. That's all I want. We spent that day talking, not just about the party, but about everything. The hard stuff, the little stuff, the things we hadn't said in years. And somewhere between the awkward silences and the small smiles, I realized we weren't just surviving. We were starting over. We didn't erase what happened, but we stopped letting it define us. It's been months now. Things aren't perfect, but they're honest. And that alone has changed everything. Thanks for watching this emotional journey on Reddit Confessions. Now it's your turn. Have you ever come close to losing someone only to find your way back to each other in an unexpected way? Tell us in the comments below. We'd love to hear your story. And if this one moved you, make sure to subscribe to Reddit Confessions for more powerful, real-life stories just like that.